In 2004, Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green were released, bringing trainers back to the Kanto region of the Pokemon world, with the first 4 generations in the Pokemon series focusing on a stylistic depiction of real-world Japanese regions, with mainland Kanto being based upon the real-world Kanto prefecture of Japan. However, an addition found within these remakes gave players a new area to explore, the Sevii Islands, with many players drawing comparisons between the Sevii Islands and that of the Orange Islands from the Pokemon anime. However, the real-world counterpart of the Sevii Islands has been for much intrigue, being based on the Japanese Izu Islands and some of the Bonin Islands. These islands are a popular tourist destination in the Kanto prefecture in Japan for a subtropical getaway with popular sports fishing and a deep history to explore. The Izu Islands and their correlation to Fire Red and Leaf Green Sevii Islands are never specifically stated, with mystery on which islands align to their real-world counterparts. Using a deep dive into not just geographical relation, but the culture, ecology, and history of the islands can help provide a better accurate guess on the inspiration of each island, with this video specifically exploring islands 1 through 3, with later installments covering the remaining islands. Starting things off, we find the Cinnabar Islands, which is based primarily off of the Izu Islands, more specifically Izu Oshima. Izu Oshima and the Cinnabar Islands share many core defining traits, with both geographically residing close off to the shore of the real-world and in-game Kanto regions. In Fire Red and Leaf Green, Cinnabar Island is used as a starting point to sail to the Sevii Islands. Similarly, Izu Oshima maintains important harbors for ferries used to sail to the other Izu Islands. The Izu Island's significance in pop culture sees this as a location from the 1984 film The Return of Godzilla, where Godzilla was sealed away, later released in the sequel film Godzilla vs. Biollante in 1989. Looking at Godzilla's relation to the Izu, similar beats start to become clear with Mewtwo, both being man-made living weapons of mass destruction sealed away on the Izu and Cinnabar Islands by the men who could no longer control what they have created. Both escaped their prison islands back to the Kanto mainland. Interesting thematic and narrative parallels that pose Mewtwo and the Cinnabar Islands as a potential reference to the pop culture iconography of Izu Oshima. The volcanic activity present in Izu Oshima is reflected in the Cinnabar Islands during an eruption event during the Generation 2 Pokemon games that left Cinnabar Island in tatters. Similarly, in the late 20th century, prominent eruptions alongside the Izu Oshima eruption crater caused damage similar, but in much smaller scale to the wide-scale devastation seen in Generation 2. Fun fact, the volcano on Izu Oshima is known as one of the world's most active erupting volcanoes, making Generation 2's inclusion of the erupted Cinnabar Island feel significantly more intentional. Something interesting of note to leave on this topic relates to the Cinnabar Research Institute and its real-world counterpart. The Cinnabar lab could potentially be compared to the Izu Oshima's heavy contributions to geological research done on the island's volcano system, the high diversity in bird populations, as well as the general archaeological fascination with the Izu Islands' past civilizations. The first member of the Sevii Islands, One Island or Not Island, serves as an introduction to the Sevii Islands, with the Pokemon Transfer Center, Mount Ember, and a good amount of trainers to challenge for some experience. One Island has real-world parallels to Nijima, a low-population island in the Izu Islands. Nijima's low population correlates to the low population of One Island, having very few NPCs. The presence of the Pokemon Transfer Center and Cilio's work on the island can also be drawn parallel to the Nijima branch of the Japanese Air Systems Research Center, with their focus primarily in experimental rocket launches and ballistics. Going south of the Pokemon Transfer Center, Treasure Beach can be located. While the in-game location primarily is used to fish for Pokemon and to farm items such as Ultra Balls, Pearls, and Star Pieces to name a few, the real-world version of Treasure Beach would be Mahima Beach, a popular tourist destination on the island for sport fishing and for beachgoers to relax. The high biodiversity in Pokemon found on Treasure Beach aligns with the Mahima Beach's similar abundance in marine life. A final note about Mahima Beach would be its popularity amongst Tokyo natives for its beauty and close enough proximity for a weekend getaway, drawing a final parallel to how Bill from the Pokemon games would sail to these islands. Moving east to the Pokemon Transfer Center, Kindle Road is a long, rocky route filled with trainers, with a key theme being sports or trainers being based off of physical activities. This was most likely done on purpose, with a popular triathlon taking place on the island every May. The rocky terrain could be a nod to the island's rock mining industry in the refinement of Koga Stone, correlating to the heavy presence of Pokemon like Geodude and Graveler being found on Kindle Road. A last note of Kindle Road would be how the presence of the Ember Spa, correlating to the real-world Nijima's Unohama Onsen Hot Spring, a popular destination for visitors of Nijima. As you continue north through Kindle Road, a separate island known as Mount Ember can be reached. Mount Ember bears similarity to Udone-shima, a deserted volcano island just north of Nijima. With the geographical relation of both islands and their placement in the Izu Islands, the connection goes deeper. Mount Ember, as described in Fire Red and Leaf Green, is an inactive volcano in which partial portions of fire can be seen periodically emerge from the inactive volcano. This can correlate to Udone-shima's island being the remnant of a lava dome. Surrounding both islands would be rough sea waters as the only way to reach both locations. However, when doing research for this video, I found that there is a high shark population in this area. If these islands were ever to be visited in later games, a really cool detail would be the addition of Pokemon like Sharpedo to the waters outside of Mount Ember. Udone-shima's island lays primarily rocky, similar to that of Mount Ember, with both having minimal fauna. My final statement would be mentioning how Moltres being in Mount Ember can possibly correlate to the presence of a small Shinto shrine being found on Udone-shima. In the Shinto religion, a phoenix-like creature known as the Kagatsuchi, bearing similarities to Moltres, is found on top of Mount Ember, though a deeper exploration into the Shinto religion and its influence on early legendary Pokemon is a topic for another time. As the player journeys through the Sevii Islands, 2 Island or Boon Island is the next stop for players, with 2 Islands Move, Tutor, and Deleter, Market, and Happy Game Corner being its defining traits. Many elements of the island draw inspiration to the real-world Toshima Island. Toshima Island has the smallest population in the Izu Islands, similar to 2 Island having the smallest population in the Sevii Islands. Toshima Island primarily has one village, with the entire island being under this village. With the relative number of the houses on 2 Island, this can be seen as a direct reflection in the small number of houses found on the island. The market area of the island may just be an additional reason to make 2 Island have more of a use to the player, but my correlation would be the various shops on the island and selling basic food items of the region, similar to how the market on 2 Island has food items not found elsewhere in the game. Going north from the main area of 2 Island, Cape Brink provides the player an area to catch Pokemon as well as the Move Tutor. Due to Cape Brink's location being elevated by the sea with a scenic grassy area, it resembles Toshima Island's Minami-Gayama Park, a popular tourist destination on the island, combined with a popular activity for tourists being sport fishing on the island. Though 2 Island may be the smallest with very little for players to explore, its reflections to the real-world Toshima Island are still present. Moving on to 3 Island or Kin Island is the next destination for players on their journey through the Sevii Islands. With 3 Islands' large variety of Pokemon to catch, from the Pokemon such as Hypno and Execute to the post-game Dunsparce along the port. Most players remember the distinct quest in which you must journey deeper into the island to fight a Hypno to save the Happy Game Corner owner's daughter. The real-world version of the 3 Island would be Hachijo Jima, the second highest populated member of the Izu Islands. In terms of the NPC count, 3 Island contains the most NPCs out of the Sevii Islands, drawing parallels to 3 Island. Geographically, 3 Island and Hachijo Jima align similarly to their placement to the other Izu Islands in the Sevii Islands respectively. As the player enters the main town area for 3 Island, they are greeted to the standard town setup seen in the Kanto region, with large gatherings of trees in the town area, bearing a striking resemblance to the lush forests of Hachijo Jima. As the player moves east of the island, the tunnels known as the 3 Island Path can be found, with 3 Island Path being a narrow, small tunnel that leads to a cliffside. This location could be in reference to the various tunnels built during World War II on Hachijo Jima, with these tunnels being a key portion of the island's history and a must-see for those interested in military history. As the player moves west of the town area, the player can reach Bond Bridge. While Bond Bridge is not correlated to a real-world location on the island, it could be a symbol for the wide variety of trails the island has to offer, with a notable industry for tourism on Hachijo Jima being guided trails. Bond Bridge also serves as an ideal point to fish for Pokemon, similar to the island's draw for sport fishing, like previously mentioned islands. With the player crossing Bond Bridge, they are led to the Berry Forest. The large presence of a sprawling forest, rich with Pokemon and berries to farm, bears strong relation to the Hachijo Botanical Park. Both areas containing high amounts of biodiversity, with Hachijo Jima containing many rare bird species, rare plants, and fungi, along with, though the island has seen severe decline in tourism in modern times, at the time of Fire Red and Leaf Green's release, it was a popular destination to relax to, not just Tokyo natives, but for outside travelers as well. Just a chance to mention a common misconception: the reason why I'm not specifically mentioning Gloom being related to the island's unique glow mushrooms is due to Gloom/Vileplume not being based on mushrooms. The line is actually based off of a corpse lily, a parasitic plant that looks similar to that of a mushroom in its texture and coloring. A final note that I want to mention is that if the Sevii Islands were to be revisited in later Pokemon games, there's much room to improve in the presence of Pokemon that correlate to the real-world species that inhabit the Izu Islands. As mentioned before, the shark populations can be easily Sharpedo from Generation 3. With the introduction of Finizen and Palafin in Generation 9, I would love for these Pokemon to be added to the Sevii Islands, bearing a symbolism for the island's high dolphin populations. For the bioluminescent mushrooms found on Hachijo Jima, Pokemon like Morlul can be added. There's many Pokemon that can be added to these islands with the 1,000+ Pokemon that now exist. Let's just hope Game Freak gives us a chance to revisit these amazing in-game locations again. I hope you all enjoyed this video for today, for this is my first in my series in discovering real-world Pokemon influence influences, as well as my first video on the channel. I hope you all learned something from this very interesting set of information about the Izu Islands, or even a bit of ecology. I plan to cover Islands 4 through 5 alongside Naval Rock in the next video, which should be out relatively soon. If you disagree with anything I may have said, or have any additional questions about the video, please comment them down below. I'm very interested in what everyone has to say about my research.